Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
Oh my God, it's the coolest thing ever. Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? Well, check this out. It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. Seriously. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
Faraday presenta Ojos con Alergia y Picazón contra el jardinero. Y el ganador es Faraday Extra Fuerte. Para aliviar la picazón de los ojos por alergia, actúa más rápido y supera Clarity y Flonase aún a las 24 horas. Faraday, adelante.
EVO. This series contains adult language and depictions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised. A few months back, I was a guest on a podcast called The Evidence Locker. And after the interview, we decided to do a collaboration between The Evidence Locker and The Devil Within. They would pick an episode from my catalog. I would pick an episode from their catalog. Now, we wouldn't just be reading the other's scripts word for word. We would put our own spin on it. They chose an episode of mine from last year entitled The Hammersmith Ghost. And I chose an episode of theirs entitled The Eerie Death of Paranormal Investigator Gaurav Tiwari. It's a story out of India that I think you'll enjoy. While I loved and very much enjoyed their take on the content, I'm going to put my own spin on it. And if you get a chance, check out The Evidence Locker wherever you get your podcasts. Their episode of The Hammersmith Ghost drops on June 2nd. In every generation, there are seekers. Pilgrims not of religion, but of mystery. Men and women who press their ear to the wall between worlds and ask the questions others fear to name. But before they were seekers, they were children, curious, wide-eyed, and sometimes haunted. This is the story of one such seeker. His name was Gaurav Tiwari. Born in the dusty alleys of Lucknow, raised among the myths and mathematics of India, he would one day walk into the shadows of the world's most haunted places, not to run from fear, but to understand it. But first, he wanted to fly. Welcome back to The Devil Within. You're listening to The Ghost in the Machine, the life and death of Gaurav Tiwari. Lucknow in the 1980s was a city where modern ambition rubbed shoulders with crumbling colonial facades. Here, amid tea stalls and Urdu poetry readings, was born a boy whose mind fluttered between logic and legend. Gaurav Tiwari's childhood was not marked by fear. It was marked by fervor. He devoured comic books, studied martial arts, recited Hindi poetry, and played parts in school plays with uncommon poise. His teachers remembered him as bright, polite, and restless, while his parents thought him serious-minded, but sensitive. Even then, he seemed destined for something, let's say, unusual. But if there was magic in young Gaurav's life, it was not found in ghosts or rituals. It was in the sky. He wanted to be a pilot. Not just for the thrill, but for what it meant. Control, order, clarity. In a country bursting with unexplained things, from cursed wells to snake-charming charlatans, aviation offered precision, math, elevation. And so, at the age of 18, Gaurav boarded a flight not to escape India's mysteries, but to rise above them. Orlando, Florida, the MVP Aero Academy. Here, among the dull gray hangars and sun-bleached tarmac, Gaurav immersed himself in flight training. His classmates remember him as focused, a bit reserved, eager to master the instruments, and quietly homesick. But something happened that winter that would follow him for the rest of his life. At first it was subtle, a light flickering, an unfamiliar whisper when no one was nearby. Then came the footsteps, soft, deliberate, in a hallway lined with locked doors. He told himself it was exhaustion, it was homesickness, or his imagination. Until it wasn't. His roommate dismissed it, but Gaurav couldn't. He began researching. Not ghosts, but electromagnetic fields. He bought a cheap EMF reader off eBay and recorded strange temperature drops. He documented static bursts. And one night, while brushing his teeth, he saw a shape behind him in the mirror, for just long enough to doubt everything he'd ever believed. He never said what it was, but it changed him. This is the moment where most ghost stories end, with someone running, denying, forgetting. But Gaurav Tiwari ran toward it. He enrolled at the Institute of Metaphysical Humanistic Science. He earned credentials in anomalous research, paranormal investigation, hypnosis. He built a mental bridge between science and superstition. And in doing so, Gaurav made a choice that would define him forever. He would not be a passenger in life. He would be a pilot, but not of aircraft, of inquiry. He would fly directly into fear. In 2009, at age 25, he returned to India, not as a pilot, but as something else entirely. India is a land of collisions, ancient and modern, sacred and profane. In the shadow of neon-lit skyscrapers lie temples older than memory. Cell towers rise beside banyan trees where ghosts are said to linger. It was into this tangled tapestry that Gaurav Tiwari returned in 2009. He came not to preach superstition. He came to measure it. He dubbed it the Indian Paranormal Society, the first of its kind in the country. Not a fan club and not a novelty act, but an organization of skeptics and seekers, engineers and empaths, a team bound by method and mystery. Their slogan was simple: we believe because we investigate. It started in a borrowed office above a shuttered bookshop in Delhi. No money, no press, just borrowed gear, a website coded by Gaurav himself, and a phone line that almost never stopped ringing. 10 calls a day, then 20, then 50. Haunted houses, possessed children, cold spots, distant screams. The supernatural, it seemed, was no longer confined to myth. It was knocking on his door. But Gaurav wasn't easily convinced. He insisted on documentation. Every case, every temperature fluctuation, every whispered voice on tape. He used EMF detectors, thermal cameras, EVP recorders, instruments of science pressed into the service of spirit. He brought discipline to a field ruled by fear. Each new location became a proving ground. A crumbling palace in Udaipur, a railway bridge near Bhopal, a modern apartment complex in Noida where doors slammed and babies screamed, but only after 2 a.m. His process was meticulous. Interview the family, inspect the site, set up night vision, and always rule out the rational first. Often, he did debunk the claims. Poor ventilation, loose wiring, sleep paralysis. But not always. and it was the cases he couldn't explain that kept him awake at night. There was the girl in Agra, 10 years old, wouldn't speak to anyone until Gaurav entered the room. Then she said his name in a voice not her own. He tried everything, readings, playback, historical research, but nothing made sense until the father confessed. A classmate named Ajit had killed himself 5 years earlier after the girl rejected his affections. She hadn't known, but something had. Gaurav later wrote, "It wasn't a ghost. It was guilt with a voice." The media took notice. He began appearing on talk shows, then reality series, Fear Files, Boot Aya, and later Haunted Australia. He spent nights in prisons, graveyards, abandoned mills. Once, he laid on a morgue slab in Sydney for 4 hours, alone, in the pitch dark, on a broken ankle. When asked why, he said simply, "I wanted to see what stayed behind." What made Gaurav different wasn't just his courage, it was his calm. Where others screamed, he asked questions. Where others ran, he remained still. People didn't just believe in ghosts, they believed in him. Enjoying this journey into the unknown? Follow The Devil Within on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Drop us a review, follow us on Instagram at The Devil Within Pod, and send your stories to info@evocreative.com. In Rajasthan, where the sand drinks sun by day and exhales it by night, there stands a place older than most memories and more feared than most myths. Bangar Fort, a name whispered in midnight dares, a location feared even by government officials, and on the rusted gate at its entrance, a sign from the Archaeological Survey of India, perhaps the only one of its kind. No entry after sunset, no entry before sunrise. It was here that Gaurav Tiwari came not to run from superstition, but to interrogate it. The legend is simple and chilling. 4 centuries ago, the city of Bangar was cursed by a tantric priest, Singhiya, who fell in love with Princess Ratnavati. When she spurned his dark magic, he cursed the entire city. The next day, invaders destroyed it. Since then, nothing has grown there. No one lives within its walls. Locals say those who sleep inside never return. A skeptic might laugh. Gaurav Tiwari did not laugh. In 2012, Gaurav led his team into the fort after dark. No film crew, no TV network, just the ghost research and investigators of the paranormal, what's known as GRIP, and their gear. Night vision, EMF meters, EVP recorders, and a digital thermometer that flickered too fast to be faulty. They camped at the outer courtyard. Cameras were placed, recordings ran, and the night passed, strangely quiet, until 3:37 a.m. They heard it. Everyone did. Not a crash, not an animal, not the wind. A door slamming. But the fort had no doors, just archways, and apparently echoes. When asked what he found, Gaurav was blunt. "There are no ghosts at Bangar," he said. He dismissed the legend as exaggerated folklore, bolstered by tourism and reinforced by fear. He said the sign was out there for safety, to keep visitors out of tiger territory at night. But behind closed doors, he told a very different story. He told his colleagues that the energy there was off. Not malevolent, but ancient. Like someone watching, something remembering, He'd later write in his private notes, "I didn't see the ghost of a priest. I felt the ghost of belief." After Bangar, something changed. Gaurav began taking fewer media calls. He turned down appearances. He slept less. He meditated more. His wife, Arya, would later say he started waking in the night, sweat on his brow, breathing shallow. Sometimes he mumbled. Sometimes he stared. And always he wrote. Pages and pages. He told his team some places stay with you longer than they should. One team member asked if he thought something had followed them. He gave no answer. My goal this summer is pretty simple. Just to find some time to chill out. Oh, and not get burned by my wireless bill. I've got that second part taken care of with Mint Mobile, and their plans starting at $15 a month. Now I can focus on the beach trips and barbecues instead of sweating data overages and surprise charges. All Mint Mobile plans come with high-speed data, unlimited talk and text, and it's all delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. So ditch your overpriced wireless and get Mint Mobile for $15 a month. And yes, you keep your phone, your number, and all your contacts. I use it, and here's why you should. It's a simple question. Why pay more? I live in Los Angeles and was with a legacy carrier for longer than I care to admit. When I made the switch, I was amazed at not only the lower price, but the better service. There were a handful of spots around the city where I'd always be dropping calls, but not anymore. So for that reason alone, it would be worth it. But I'm also paying about 3 times less. This year, skip breaking a sweat and breaking the bank. Get your summer savings and shop premium wireless plans at mintmobile.com/devilwithin. That's mintmobile.com/devilwithin. Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5GB plan required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
What makes a great pair of glasses? At Warby Parker, it's all the invisible extras without the extra cost. Their designer quality frames start at $95, including prescription lenses, plus scratch-resistant, smudge-resistant, and anti-reflective coatings, and UV protection, and free adjustments for life. To find your next pair of glasses, sunglasses, or contact lenses, or to find the Warby Parker store nearest you, head over to warbyparker.com. That's warbyparker.com.
Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC, licensed in all 50 states, and MLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030.
Choice Hotels get you more for your money so you can maximize any road trip. Let's get real close to hear the maximum sizzle of Comfort Inn's free hot breakfast. Maximized. Check into more. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
What do you do when the spirits you chase begin chasing you? By 2015, Gaurav Tiwari had become a household name among India's ghost curious. But what the public saw was only part of the story. Because behind the polished interviews, beneath the confident TV presence, something was unraveling. It began in Hyderabad, a call from a panicked family. Their teenage daughter had stopped eating, stopped speaking. Her eyes, they said, no longer looked like hers. Gaurav arrived with 2 members of his GRIP team. He brought the usual tools, meters, cameras, voice recorders. What he witnessed, he never spoke of in public. One teammate later confided he looked shaken, like he'd seen himself inside her. The girl spoke in Sanskrit, a language she'd never learned. When Gaurav placed his hand on hers, she whispered. You're next." He left that night in silence. That same week, Gaurav told his wife that he felt watched, not by spirits, but by something inside himself. He began seeing a black line across his vision, just for a second, like a thread pulled through his eyes. Doctors found nothing. Tests were normal. But Gaurav was not. He told his wife, "Something has attached itself to me, and I don't know what it wants." He stopped sleeping. He stopped speaking to friends. He recorded hours of EVP in his own home. In one recording, never released publicly, a faint voice can be heard saying, "Come with us." In early 2016, Gaurav visited a psychic in Pune, someone he trusted, not a charlatan, but an old soul from an older world. The woman refused payment. She said she saw something behind him. "You've touched too much," she said. "You've opened too many doors. Now one won't close anymore." Gaurav nodded, quiet, tired. He asked her one question. "Will I die soon?" She didn't answer. She just reached for salt and sprinkled it at his feet. In the final weeks of his life, Gaurav kept a journal. Its contents remained private, but friends said it grew darker by the day. He began distancing himself from the grip team, told one colleague that he needed to fight something alone. His wife Arya says he once stared into the bathroom mirror for 10 minutes. When she asked what he saw, he replied, "Something's waiting." On July 7th, 2016, Gaurav kissed his baby daughter on the forehead, smiled, told his wife he'd be back in an hour. She never saw him alive again. Death often speaks in riddles, in whispers, in half-truths that echo long after the last breath fades. But sometimes it says nothing at all. July 7th, 2016, Dwarka, New Delhi. Gaurav Tiwari, India's most recognizable paranormal investigator, was found lying face down on the floor of his bedroom. His skin was cold, his pulse was gone, and around his neck was a thin black line. His wife Arya had knocked on the bathroom door. He'd been inside too long. She called his name once, then twice, with no answer. When she pushed the door open, she found him on the floor, motionless. No blood, no bruises, just that line, faint, black, perfectly horizontal, running along the base of his neck. There were no screams, just a stunned silence. The man who had spent his life confronting death had now become death's mystery. The authorities arrived within the hour. No signs of forced entry, no suicide note, no struggle. The family insisted he was in good health, with no history of depression, no drug use, no alcohol. Still, the police ruled it a suicide by asphyxiation. But even they couldn't say how. There was no cord, no belt, no fixture strong enough to support a hanging, no definitive explanation. Just a line on his neck. A mystery wrapped in silence. And questions. Too many questions. The press exploded. Ghost hunter found dead in his own home. Was he haunted to death? India's real-life Mulder dies mysteriously. For those of you who don't get the reference, Fox Mulder was the lead paranormal investigator in the 1990s show The X-Files. Speculation came quickly. Some claimed he had been possessed. Others believed he had been cursed, a spirit from a previous investigation seeking revenge. A few whispered about tantric forces, about ancient protections broken. But not everyone believed in the supernatural explanation. His critics suggested burnout, exhaustion, or even the weight of public expectation. But those closest to Gaurav rejected the suicide theory outright. 4 days before his death, Gaurav had left a voicemail for one of his GRIP colleagues. It was short, calm, almost cryptic. He said, "If anything happens to me, don't let the work stop. The line between the worlds is thinner than we thought." No one knew what he meant until it was too late. Later, his phone history showed no unusual calls, no threatening messages, no alarms. And yet his wife remembers one final, chilling detail. That morning, before entering the bathroom, he turned to her and said, "They're not finished with me." Gaurav Tiwari was cremated on a humid July morning. The pyre burned fast, quieter than most. A man who gave voice to the dead, now silent himself. But stories like this don't end in ash. They echo, they haunt, they persist in the minds of those left behind. Theories multiplied in the weeks following his death. Some believed he was cursed by a spirit he failed to banish. Others whispered of secret investigations into dark rituals, ancient texts stolen from ashrams in Gujarat, or tantric experiments gone wrong. There were even murmurs of foul play, sabotage, murder made to look like myth. But the police never reopened the case. To them, it was closed. But to the people he inspired, it was just beginning. Tributes poured in across India and beyond. YouTube creators lit candles in his name. Paranormal forums lit up with photos, with prayers, even EVP recordings that fans claimed captured his voice from beyond the grave. The Indian Paranormal Society's site crashed under the weight of traffic. And his team, GRIP, was shaken but not broken. They vowed to continue his work. And his wife, Arya, quiet and poised, made a simple statement. Gaurav believed in finding the truth, no matter how dark, how deep, how dangerous. That belief didn't die with him. He left behind more than gear and case files. He left behind questions about what we believe and why we fear what we can't explain. He left behind unfinished investigations, half-written journal entries, and a final book proposal titled Between Two Worlds. It was never published, but in the draft's closing line, written in his familiar, precise hand, he wrote, "Perhaps ghosts are not the dead. Perhaps they are the truths we refuse to confront." Today, a new generation of ghost hunters walks in Gaurav's footsteps, not with fear, but with curiosity. Armed with smartphones instead of spirit boards, they speak his name with reverence. Not because he proved the paranormal was real, but because he proved it was worth investigating. In Mumbai, a college course on cultural folklore now includes his research. In Chennai, an annual ghost hunters meetup bears his initials. And in the quiet halls of his old office, a framed photo still hangs. His face, locked to the lens, almost smiling. Almost. Gaurav Tiwari walked the line between logic and the liminal, not to frighten, but to understand. He died under a shadow no one could name, but he lived chasing light through the darkest corners of belief. And perhaps that's where all our ghosts live. Not in the dead, but in the unanswered. Thanks for listening to The Devil Within. This has been The Ghost in the Machine. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you subscribe to The Devil Within on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Comment, rate, and share your own theories. And follow us on Instagram at The Devil Within Pod, and email your thoughts or ideas to info@evocreative.com. Until next time, stay safe out there. The Devil Within is an EVO production, recorded live at Bel Air Studios in Los Angeles, California. For The Devil Within, I'm your host, Brandon Morgan.